June 6th, 1944, 13:30 hours, Berchtesgaden, Bavaria. In the map room of the Berghof, Adolf Hitler's mountain retreat, a single telephone call shattered the illusion that Fortress Europe remained impregnable. The message was brief, delivered in the clipped tones of a staff officer whose voice betrayed carefully suppressed panic. "Mein Führer, the Allies have established beachheads in Normandy. They are not withdrawing." For 9 hours, while American, British, and Canadian forces stormed 5 beaches along the Norman coast, the supreme commander of Nazi Germany had slept. His staff, paralyzed by standing orders never to wake him, and terrified of his legendary rages, had watched the invasion reports accumulate like death sentences. When Hitler finally emerged at 1300 hours, requesting his customary late breakfast, he entered a world that had fundamentally transformed while he dreamed. What followed in the hours and days after D-Day was not merely a military defeat, but a catastrophic failure of intelligence, command structure, and strategic reality. The German High Command's reaction to the Allied invasion revealed the fatal flaws in Nazi military doctrine, flaws that would turn the greatest amphibious assault in history from a potential disaster into an unstoppable avalanche that would crush the Third Reich within 11 months. The German defensive posture along the Atlantic Wall represented 3 years of military construction and strategic debate that had consumed the Wehrmacht's senior leadership. By June 1944, Nazi Germany had constructed what propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels proclaimed as an impregnable barrier stretching from Norway to the Spanish border. 15,000 fortifications, 6.5 million mines, and 500,000 obstacles designed to shred any invasion force before it could establish a foothold on continental Europe. But behind this facade of strength lay a command structure fractured by competing egos, contradictory strategies, and a dictator whose interference in military operations had grown increasingly erratic. The fundamental disagreement centered on a single question: where should German forces meet the Allied invasion? Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, appointed Inspector of Coastal Defenses in November 1943, had studied the lessons of North Africa and Italy. His conclusion contradicted traditional German mobile warfare doctrine. "The war will be won or lost on the beaches," Rommel had written in his assessment to OKW, the Armed Forces High Command. "We must stop the enemy in the water, destroy him before he sets foot on land. If he establishes a beachhead, our cause is lost." Rommel's strategy demanded concentrating Panzer divisions within striking distance of the coast, specifically positioning them close enough to counterattack within hours of any landing. He had witnessed Allied air superiority in North Africa and understood that daylight movement of armored formations would be suicidal. The panzers needed to be close, ready to strike before Allied forces could consolidate. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Commander-in-Chief West, held the opposite view. A traditionalist who had commanded armies since before Hitler came to power, Rundstedt believed in the classic German mobile defense. "Let them land," he had argued in staff meetings throughout spring 1944. "Let them extend themselves inland away from naval gunfire support. Then we destroy them with concentrated panzer counterattacks in the interior, where our armor can maneuver freely." This strategic paralysis meant German armored reserves were positioned neither for Rommel's immediate coastal defense nor for Rundstedt's inland counteroffensive. Instead, they sat in compromised positions that satisfied no coherent strategy. The 21st Panzer Division near Caen could potentially reach invasion beaches within hours. But the critical 12th SS Panzer Division sat 95 kilometers southeast, and the Panzer Lehr Division was stationed 125 kilometers from the coast near Chartres. Worse still, Hitler had personally reserved control of these strategic reserves. Standing orders required his explicit authorization before Panzer divisions could move to contact. This meant that even as Allied paratroopers descended on Norman fields in the pre-dawn hours of June 6th, German commanders with tanks within striking distance could only watch and wait for permission that would not come for crucial hours. The intelligence failure compounded the command paralysis. German intelligence services had fractured into competing organizations: the Abwehr under Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, the Sicherheitsdienst under Walter Schellenberg, and Foreign Armies West under Colonel Alexis von Rönn. Each produced assessments that contradicted the others, and all had been penetrated by Allied deception operations. Operation Fortitude, the Allied deception plan, had convinced German intelligence that the Normandy landings were merely a feint. The real invasion, they believed, would come at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel, where the fictional 1st United States Army Group under General George Patton supposedly waited to strike. German intelligence estimates placed Allied strength in Britain at 89 divisions, when actual strength was 47. More critically, they believed 50 divisions remained in southeastern England, poised for the real invasion. This intelligence assessment meant that even as reports flooded in from Normandy on June 6th, German High Command remained convinced they were witnessing a diversionary attack. The 15th Army, Germany's strongest force with 19 divisions, sat immobile near Calais throughout D-Day, waiting to repel an invasion that existed only in German imagination and Allied radio traffic. The weather had also played its role in German complacency. Meteorologists had predicted storms making amphibious operations impossible for several days. Rommel himself had departed for Germany on June 5th, planning to celebrate his wife's birthday on June 6th before continuing to Berchtesgaden to petition Hitler for additional Panzer divisions. Multiple division and corps commanders were away from their posts attending war games in Rennes. The Luftwaffe had reduced alert status. Naval patrols had been canceled due to rough seas. At 0600 hours on June 6th, as American forces waded through the surf at Omaha Beach under withering fire, German military leadership was scattered, its reserves immobilized by standing orders, and its intelligence apparatus convinced the real battle remained weeks away at a different location entirely. The Allied breakthrough on D-Day was not merely a triumph of courage or numbers. It represented the culmination of years of coordinated planning, technological innovation, and operational security the German High Command had fundamentally underestimated. What the Wehrmacht faced on June 6th was an invasion force that had revolutionized amphibious warfare through systematic analysis of previous failures and methodical development of solutions. The genesis of D-Day's tactical innovations began with the disaster Dieppe on August 19, 1942. That raid, which caused 3,623 Canadian casualties in 9 hours, provided brutal lessons that shaped every aspect of Overlord planning. Allied planners had learned that direct assault on fortified ports was suicidal, that naval gunfire alone could not suppress coastal defenses, and that armor support was essential from the first wave. The solution was the development of Hobart's Funnies, specialized armored vehicles designed by Major General Percy Hobart's 79th Armored Division. These weren't merely modified tanks. They represented a complete reimagining of amphibious assault doctrine. The DD, or duplex-drive Sherman tank, could swim ashore using a collapsible canvas screen and twin propellers, providing direct fire support to infantry in the critical first minutes. The AVRE, Armored Vehicle Royal Engineers, carried a 290mm petard mortar, firing 40-pound charges capable of destroying concrete fortifications. Flail tanks detonated mines with rotating chains, while crocodiles projected flame streams up to 120 yards. The technical specifications revealed the extraordinary industrial coordination behind Overlord. Allied planners had calculated that 156,000 troops would require landing on D-Day itself, supported by 5,000 ships and landing craft, with 11,000 aircraft providing cover and support. Since no port could be captured intact, engineers designed two artificial harbors, the Mulberry harbors, each the size of Dover's port, to be towed across the channel and assembled off the Norman coast. Each Mulberry required 600,000 tons of concrete and steel. Phoenix caissons, massive concrete structures standing 6 stories tall, would be sunk to form breakwaters. Floating roadways called whale bridges would connect the shore to Liberty ships unloading supplies. The engineering specifications called for the capacity to land 12,000 tons of supplies and 2,500 vehicles daily once established. Pluto, pipeline under the ocean, represented another technical marvel that German intelligence had completely missed. Engineers had developed flexible steel pipelines that could be laid across the channel floor, pumping 1 million gallons of fuel daily directly from England to France. Without captured port facilities, this pipeline would prove essential to maintaining Allied offensive momentum. The deception operations supporting D-Day elevated military subterfuge to an art form. Operation Bodyguard, the overall deception plan, employed every available method to mislead German intelligence. Double agents, all controlled by British intelligence through the double-cross system, fed carefully crafted misinformation to their German handlers. Most critical was Agent Garbo, Spanish national Juan Pujol Garcia, whom German intelligence considered their most reliable source in Britain. Garbo's network of fictional sub-agents, all creations of British intelligence, provided a steady stream of intelligence that confirmed German preconceptions about Allied intentions. In the weeks before D-Day, Garbo reported troop movements, equipment sightings, and strategic discussions, all carefully designed to reinforce the Pas-de-Calais deception. On June 5th, Garbo transmitted a message to German intelligence warning of imminent operations, but deliberately timed to arrive after German intelligence officers had gone off duty, preserving his credibility while ensuring the warning came too late. The Phantom Army created by Operation Fortitude employed unprecedented technological deception. Dummy landing craft constructed from canvas and scaffolding filled harbors in southeastern England. Inflatable tanks and artillery pieces populated fake encampments. Signals units broadcast endless radio traffic mimicking Corps and Army headquarters. German reconnaissance flights photographed exactly what Allied planners wanted them to see: an enormous force preparing to strike at Calais. Allied codebreakers at Bletchley Park had achieved what German commanders considered impossible. They had broken the Enigma cipher machine. Through ultra-intelligence, Allied commanders could read German military communications almost in real time. This provided insights into German dispositions, reinforcement schedules, and, critically, confirmation that deception operations were working. Ultra-intercepts revealed that German commanders remained convinced the Normandy landings were diversionary. The air superiority that would prove decisive on D-Day resulted from systematic destruction of the Luftwaffe in the months preceding invasion. Operation Point Blank, the combined bomber offensive, had deliberately targeted German aircraft production and fuel supplies. By June 1944, the Luftwaffe could muster only 319 aircraft to oppose the invasion. The Allies would fly 14,674 sorties on D-Day itself. German fighters managed only 319 sorties during the entire day. Allied naval gunfire provided another technical advantage that German coastal defenders had not adequately prepared for. The invasion fleet included 7 battleships, 2 monitors, 23 cruisers, and numerous destroyers capable of delivering precision fire support for inland advances up to 20 miles from the coast. Fire control systems had been refined through Mediterranean operations, allowing ships to provide accurate supporting fire for inland advances up to 20 miles from the coast. The coordination between air, naval, and ground forces represented operational integration that Wehrmacht doctrine had never achieved. Forward air controllers accompanying assault troops could request airstrikes on specific targets within minutes. Naval gunfire liaison teams directed ship bombardment with unprecedented accuracy.
This combined arms approach, coordinated through reliable radio communications and supported by detailed pre-invasion planning, created a system that could adapt to battlefield developments in real time.
The first coherent reports reaching German High Command came not through official channels, but through frantic radio transmissions from coastal observation posts beginning at 0200 hours on June 6th. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich August Freiherr von de Heite, commanding the 6th Fallschirmjäger Regiment, transmitted from his position near Sainte-Marie-Église. Massive parachute drops occurring across entire sector. Estimate battalion strength minimum. Request immediate reinforcement. At 0300 hours, the 716th Infantry Division headquarters in Normandy reported to 7th Army Command. Paratroop landings confirmed across multiple zones. Communications disrupted. Heavy bombing of coastal positions ongoing. The message reached General Friedrich Dahlmann, commanding 7th Army, who faced the paralyzing dilemma of Hitler's standing orders. He could not commit armored reserves without authorization from Berchtesgaden. The critical failure occurred between 0400 and 0630 hours. As dawn broke over the Norman coast and the largest armada in human history materialized offshore, German commanders with divisions capable of reaching the beaches within hours could only watch through binoculars and request permission to move. Major General Edgar Feuchtinger, commanding the 21st Panzer Division stationed just 15 kilometers from the coast, received reports of British glider landings near his headquarters at 0230 hours. His panzers could have reached Sword Beach before the first British troops waded ashore. His requests to engage were denied pending authorization from above. At 0600 hours, as American forces began their assault on Omaha Beach under murderous fire from the 352nd Infantry Division, General Alfred Jodl, Hitler's chief of operations staff, refused to wake the Fuhrer. The situation is unclear, Jodl told staff officers requesting authorization to release Panzer reserves. We must wait for better intelligence before disturbing the Fuhrer with preliminary reports. The turning point came at 10 o'clock hours when Major General Wilhelm Richter, commanding the 716th Infantry Division defending Gold and Juno beaches, transmitted his final coherent report. Enemy has achieved penetration at multiple points. Positions overrun. Cannot hold without immediate armored support. Situation critical. The transmission ended abruptly as British forces overran his headquarters bunker near Cosul-sur-Mer. Hitler finally received his briefing at 1330 hours, 9.5 hours after the first paratroops landed. According to testimony from Generals Jodl and Wilhelm Keidel, recorded at Nuremberg trials, Hitler's first reaction was dismissive. This is the diversion we expected. The real invasion comes at Calais. We hold the reserves for the main attack. When Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt requested immediate release of the 12th SS Panzer and Panzerlehr divisions at 1400 hours, Hitler authorized only limited movement, one division to move toward Caen. The others remain in position to counter the Calais invasion. This single decision effectively surrendered the battle. The 21st Panzer Division, finally authorized to attack at 1500 hours, advanced toward the British beachhead but encountered the full weight of Allied naval gunfire. Captain Wilhelm von Gottberg, commanding the division's 22nd Panzer Regiment, later testified that concentrated naval bombardment destroyed 40% of his armor before reaching the coast. By 1600 hours, the situation reports painted a picture of catastrophe. The 352nd Infantry Division on Omaha Beach, which had fought magnificently throughout the morning, reported ammunition critically low, casualties exceeding 50%, American forces advancing inland, cannot hold positions beyond nightfall. Colonel Walter Korfess, commanding Artillery Regiment 352, transmitted at 1645 hours, observed ships extending to horizon. This is no diversion. Request permission withdraw to secondary positions. Permission was denied. At 1730 hours, German commanders received the intelligence assessment they had dreaded. Luftwaffe reconnaissance, flying one of the few sorties managed that day, confirmed Allied ships numbering in the thousands. The pilot's report was stark. Invasion fleet extends across 50-mile front. Estimate 4,000-plus vessels. Continuous landing operations all beaches. This is the main invasion. Field Marshal Rommel, racing back from Germany, did not reach his headquarters at La Roche-Guyon until 2200 hours. His chief of staff, General Hans Speidel, briefed him on the day's disasters. According to Speidel's post-war testimony, Rommel's response was immediate and devastating. "The war is lost. We have lost the decisive battle. Everything I warned about has come to pass." The final crushing blow came through radio intercepts. At 23:15 hours, German listening posts recorded massive radio traffic from southeastern England, the Phantom 1st U.S. Army Group that supposedly awaited the Calais invasion. Intelligence offices reported to OKW, "FUSG remains in England. No signs of movement towards embarkation. Normandy may be the Schwerpunkt. Main effort." But this realization came 17 hours too late. By midnight on June 6th, 156,000 Allied troops occupied French soil across 5 beachheads extending 24 miles along the coast and penetrating up to 6 miles inland. The Atlantic Wall, 3 years in construction, had been breached in a single day. More critically, the window for immediate armored counterattack, the crucial first 24 hours when beachheads remained vulnerable, had closed while German commanders waited for authorization that came too late and remained convinced they faced a deception. The psychological collapse within German high command manifested not in a single moment, but through a cascade of realizations that accumulated across June 7th through 12th. Each day brought fresh intelligence that contradicted fundamental assumptions upon which German defensive strategy had been built, and each revelation further paralyzed an already dysfunctional command structure. June 7th, D+1, 0800 hours. Intelligence summaries confirmed that Allied forces had successfully linked 4 of 5 beachheads. Only Omaha remained partially separated from adjacent beaches. Worse still, reconnaissance flights, the few that survived overwhelming Allied air superiority, reported construction of artificial harbor facilities already beginning off the Norman coast. General Gunther Blumentritt, chief of staff to von Rundstedt, recorded in his daily log, "The artificial harbors confirm this is no raid. Enemy intends sustained operations from Normandy. Our entire strategic assessment was flawed." The 15th Army, Germany's strongest force with 19 divisions, remained frozen near Calais on June 7th, awaiting the real invasion. Hitler and OKW intelligence continued to believe Normandy was diversionary. But field commanders witnessing the buildup firsthand knew differently. Lieutenant General Hans von Salmuth, commanding 15th Army, sent increasingly urgent requests. "Normandy fighting requires immediate reinforcement. Request authorization to move divisions south." Each request was denied. The phantom army that existed only in German imagination held Germany's most powerful force immobile while Normandy burned. By June 8th, the psychological impact extended beyond operational paralysis to something more fundamental, a crisis of confidence in German military leadership. Field commanders who had faithfully executed Hitler's orders for 5 years began questioning whether orders from Berchtesgaden reflected battlefield reality. Colonel General Friedrich Dollmann, commanding 7th Army, suffered what medical officers termed nervous exhaustion. His chief of staff effectively assumed command while Dollmann remained in his quarters, unable to function. The statistics accumulated like successive hammer blows to German morale. By June 10th, Allied forces had landed 326,000 troops, 54,000 vehicles, and 104,000 tons of supplies. German reinforcements, attempting to reach Normandy, faced systematic destruction. The 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich, moving from southern France, required 17 days to cover 450 miles, a journey that should have taken 3 days. Allied air power transformed every daylight movement into a death trap. Division Commander SS Brigadier Führer Heinz Lammerding reported losing 1,500 men and 130 vehicles before reaching the battle zone. The railway interdiction campaign revealed the depth of Allied planning. Systematic bombing had destroyed 76 of 80 railway bridges over the Seine River. Reinforcements from Germany had to detour hundreds of miles, then moved by night through secondary roads where French resistance fighters harassed every column. The 275th Infantry Division required 12 days to move from Brittany to the front, a distance of 150 miles. Radio intercepts revealed the psychological disintegration among German field commanders. On June 11th, Signals Intelligence recorded a transmission from an unnamed regimental commander to division headquarters. "My men ask why the Luftwaffe does not come, why our panzers do not arrive. I have no answer that they believe. Morale is critical." Such communications had been unthinkable in previous campaigns. The command crisis reached its breaking point on June 12th when Rommel and von Rundstedt requested a meeting with Hitler to advocate strategic withdrawal from Normandy to more defensible positions. According to testimony at post-war trials, both field marshals arrived at Berchtesgaden prepared to explain why current strategy courted disaster. Hitler refused to see them together, receiving each separately to prevent unified opposition to his directives. When Rommel outlined the situation, overwhelming Allied air superiority, inadequate reinforcements reaching the front, unsustainable casualties, and deteriorating morale, Hitler's response revealed his complete detachment from battlefield reality. According to Rommel's chief of staff, who debriefed the field marshal afterward, Hitler declared, "You must hold every meter. No withdrawal. New weapons will turn the tide." When Rommel pressed for details about these weapons, Hitler spoke vaguely of jets and rockets that would soon devastate Allied forces. Von Rundstedt's separate meeting produced similar results. When he outlined the strategic necessity of creating mobile reserves by shortening defensive lines, Hitler responded with accusations of defeatism. According to von Rundstedt's testimony at Nuremberg, Hitler stated, "The Atlantic Wall must be held. Any commander who speaks of withdrawal is dismissed." The psychological impact extended to German soldiers witnessing the material disparity firsthand. Captured documents and prisoner interrogation revealed troops comparing their situation to the Eastern Front's worst moments. A letter from an Unteroffizier of the 356th Infantry Division, intercepted by Allied intelligence, stated, "We fight well, but it means nothing. For every shell we fire, they fire 50. For every plane we see, they have hundreds. This is not war. This is extermination by industrial production." By June 12th, German casualties in Normandy exceeded 26,000 men, killed, wounded, or captured. Allied casualties totaled 52,000, but their replacement system delivered fresh troops daily, while German reinforcements never arrived in sufficient numbers. More significantly, the Wehrmacht had lost irreplaceable formations. Elite Panzer and parachute divisions, committed piecemeal to counterattacks, were being systematically destroyed without achieving operational objectives. The failure of German High Command's response to D-Day represented more than tactical defeat. It exposed the fundamental contradictions within Nazi military structure that would characterize the Reich's collapse over the following 11 months. The decisions made between June 6th and June 12th, 1944, created a template of dysfunction that would repeat across every subsequent crisis until final surrender in May 1945. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, chief of OKW, testified at Nuremberg that D-Day revealed what senior commanders had privately understood but never openly acknowledged. The Führer's military judgment had become detached from operational reality. His refusal to authorize tactical withdrawals, his insistence on holding every position, his belief in wonder weapons rather than sound strategy, these cost us the war in the West before summer ended. The command paralysis that kept German armor immobile during D-Day's crucial first 24 hours was not an aberration, but the logical result of Hitler's centralization of military authority. General Gunter Blumentritt, analyzing the campaign post-war for U.S. military historians, explained, "A corporal commanded field marshals. Local commanders who understood battlefield conditions could not act. Distant commanders who could authorize action did not understand conditions. This gap between authority and knowledge proved fatal." The statistical evidence confirmed the catastrophic nature of German defeat. By June 30th, less than a month after the invasion, German casualties in Normandy exceeded 80,000 men, killed, wounded, or captured. 8 divisions had been destroyed as effective fighting forces. The Panzer Division, one of Germany's elite armored formations, reported on June 29th that it retained only 40 operational tanks from an initial strength of 190. Its commander, General Fritz Bayerlein, transmitted, "My division is finished, can no longer conduct offensive operations." More significantly, Germany's strategic situation had become untenable. The two-front war that German military planners had warned Hitler against in 1941 now consumed German forces at unsustainable rates. In June 1944 alone, Wehrmacht casualties across all fronts exceeded 450,000, 150,000 in the west, 300,000 in the east. Germany's monthly tank production averaged 670 units. The Soviet Union produced 2,000. American industry produced 2,100. The mathematics of industrial warfare had become undeniable. The psychological impact on German field commanders manifested in unprecedented ways. On July 17th, Allied fighter bombers strafed Rommel's staff car, severely wounding the field marshal who had warned Hitler that Normandy's loss meant losing the war in the West. On July 20th, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg's bomb exploded in Hitler's conference room at Rastenburg, the most serious of multiple assassination attempts by military officers who concluded Germany's only hope lay in removing Hitler and negotiating armistice with the Western Allies. The conspiracy involved dozens of senior Wehrmacht officers, including Field Marshal von Witzleben, General Ludwig Beck, and numerous others who had concluded Hitler's leadership guaranteed Germany's destruction. The plot's failure and subsequent executions of over 5,000 suspected conspirators, including Rommel, forced to commit suicide in October, further paralyzed German military effectiveness. Surviving commanders understood that questioning orders now invited execution. General Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, wrote in his post-war memoir, Crusade in Europe, "German High Command's failure to commit armored reserves on D-Day remains one of history's decisive command failures. Had those panzers struck our beaches in the first 24 hours while we remained vulnerable, the outcome might have been vastly different. Their hesitation gave us the foothold that